What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones back with another morning drop. And today we are going to continue our position group room breakdown, talking about one of the more important positions on the team. That's the quarterback. Let's get straight to it. Y'all know how we do right here. War Report style. Just drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. It is Tuesday, August the 20th, and we are here in the Rogue Shop morning drop brought to you by the Auburn Express, a portion of the War Report podcast network. It's a mouthful, but we definitely want to make sure that you guys head over to the sponsor of this morning drop and all morning drops, Rogue Shop. At rogueshop.com, you can use code FREEZE4 to get 15% off of your next purchase. Once again, Rogue Shop is America's #1 online dispensary. Make sure you hit them up and use code FREEZE4 to let them know that the War Report sent you over there. FREEZE4, of course, in reference to the dynamic freshman group of receivers that are in there. But who is going to be the guy throwing them the football? Of course, the answer to that question is Payton Thorne. He is QB1. He has been QB1 since fall. I mean, since spring camp, right? So we're not breaking any news there. But Coach Hugh Freeze did recently take to the Talking Tigers podcast to announce who the QB2 would be. So we pretty much know what the depth chart is going to look like for the Auburn Tigers at the quarterback position coming up this fall. But let's take a look at the room in total, and then we'll talk about each of the folks that are in the room in a little bit more detail. Of course, going into this season, Robbie Ashford, Sawyer Pate no longer with the team. Sawyer Pate graduated. Robbie Ashford transfers over to South Carolina. So he is not going to be a factor in this at all. Unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you would have known that already. As far as additions to the room, oddly enough, why do people call it sleeping under a rock? What? I guess news just doesn't travel if you're like in a cave underground. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Walker White is the addition to the room. No transfer portal quarterback this year. That's something that we talked about in the offseason. We just didn't feel like was going to happen. The addition was the true freshman Walker White, who is there and still trying to find his way as a true freshman and figure out things. Got an opportunity to sit down, by the way, as an aside, with Chris Todd recently, and we've got that video that's going to be coming out here soon, talking about really just kind of the quarterback mechanics from all of those guys from the film that we had from A-Day. So some good information there from Chris Todd. Be on the lookout there, particularly Green Name Gang. You'll get full access to that entire video breakdown, film breakdown that I did with Chris Todd about these quarterbacks. So look forward to that. Anyway, yeah, Walker White, the freshman, added there. And then for the returning folks, and this is where the competition for who's going to probably get playing time this season starts with QB1, Payton Thorne there, fifth-year senior, now in his second season as the starting quarterback for Auburn, in his fourth season as a starting quarterback for a Power 4 program. So looking forward to seeing how Payton Thorne progresses there. Holden Gerner is the sophomore in that room, redshirt sophomore, third season in college. His hasn't he hasn't ever started a college football game in those 3 seasons, and looking to push there for that QB2 spot. And then Hank Brown, the redshirt freshman. This was a guy who came over with Coach Hugh Freeze when he made the transition from Liberty. He was initially, of course, recruited to Liberty, had committed there, but when Freeze made the move over to Auburn, he flipped that commitment over to Auburn, so was a part of the freshman class last season. Then you've got Jackson Barkley and John Colvin there as your walk-ons that are there at the quarterback position. Not factoring in heavily, of course, with what's happening as far as what's going to be on the field, but also available there in the quarterback room. But let's begin the conversation with Payton Thorne, right? Payton Thorne is the guy. He is QB1. We've talked over and over and over again about the renewed confidence that this offense has in Payton Thorne. That is from pass catchers to offensive line to offensive coaches, all the way up to the head coach, about what they feel like Payton Thorne can be this season in this offense with these weapons. No doubt that Payton Thorne should perform better this season, if for no other reason then he should get more attempts. So, I want to quantify when we talk about what's better for Payton Thorne this year, right? Like if you look at what Payton Thorne has done historically, better for him, is it going to just be a product of more attempts, right? Is he going to be the same quarterback with more attempts? The improve, and I want people to not tie Peyton Thorne's performance to, oh, well, he had better pass catching targets or he had better blah, 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 this and this and that. Was Peyton Thorne more effective at the line of scrimmage? That's how I'm going to look at it. How efficient is he in operating this offense? How much of his productivity and the things that he does this season versus last season were a product of things that Peyton Thorne did at the line of scrimmage, that he did post snap in the way that he was reading defenses? Can he cut down on the number of turnovers, right? So you've seen these times in the past where he's had better numbers, right? 3,000, 2,500, whatever the passing yardages are going to be for Peyton Thorne historically in his career, that were drastically better than what he had last season at Auburn. Those were products of him having more attempts and having a run game that was a little bit more, really just an offense that was functioning a little bit better, right? Peyton Thorne was still a low 60s completion percentage guy. He still was a double digit interception guy. Can he cut the turnovers down? Can he increase the percentage of times that he's hitting a target that's available for him to hit? Right. And I'm talking about even with the adjusted completion percentage, right? He's still going to be in the mid 60s. If you look at adjusted completion percentage, can he get up into the 70s with that, while improving the number of attempts that he has, while also improving, well, that would naturally improve his number of completions that he has on the season and the number of yards that he's going to have on the season. It's not, for me, when I'm looking at Peyton Thorne as the quarterback for Auburn next season, going to simply be, well, last year he threw for around 16 to 1,700 yards. And this year he threw for 2,500 yards. So he was better this season because, no, right? Like, having more attempts and around the same completion percentage, but you have more interceptions, that's not better quarterback play. That just means that you threw the ball more. I want to see a Peyton Thorne that does all of the things that he talked about, which he'll have the availability to do, which is go and read the defenses pre-snap and get us out of bad plays, right? That's a thing that Coach Freeze has talked about, Peyton Thorne's talked about. Can we get into the right play when the defense says that, hey, this isn't the right look for us? How proficient is he going to be in that? And some of that's going to be on the offensive line, right? Like, he might have the right call and make the right adjustment, sight reads, and all that kind of thing. And the offensive line doesn't pick it up properly. Blocking assignments break down, right? So there's going to be some nuance in that. Is he more accurate or more consistent with his RPO reads? When to pull, when to keep, when to throw, all of those things. How consistent is he going to be in those things this year? And then the execution of the throw itself. Like, how accurate is he? Well, first and foremost, is he, all right, cool, he made the right decision about what the read needs to be pre-snap of, hey, we're in a run play, let's get over into this pass play, we're throwing hot off of this XYZ, right? Does he throw it to the right guy? Like, of the options that he has available, is he making the right decision in that scenario? And then the final step is, how accurate a pass is he delivering in that scenario, right? How quickly is he getting the ball out of his hand? Is he, waiting until the guy's open, so he's putting them in harm's way? The right place for the ball placement that he's going to have for the passes that he's delivering. All of those things are going to be ways that we're going to be able to weigh whether or not Peyton Thorne has really taken a true step. It's not just going to be about number of yards. And that's the thing I try to caution people about when you're looking and trying to evaluate. I don't care if Peyton Thorne throws for 400 yards in the first 3 games of the season against opponents that are considered to be inferior. I don't care if he only throws for 200 yards in those games. What I want to know is, how many snaps did he take in that game? How many possessions resulted in scoring drives when he was at the helm at quarterback? And how accurate was he in the way in which he manipulated defenses, whether it was making the right call, right? So sometimes it's going to be making the call out of a pass play into a run play. That's good quarterbacking, and that doesn't show up on a stat sheet somewhere. How accurate is Peyton Thorne in those moments? That's going to be the telltale sign of whether or not he's made the transition to be a better QB1 and put himself in a position to be a professional quarterback somewhere, right? Like, whether that is in the NFL or one of these other professional leagues that are around here emerging, Has he put himself in the position for people to look at him and say, that's a pro right there? He's making pro decisions, and then he's making pro throws out of that. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing from Payton Thorne this season. We will see. We are very close to being able to see whether or not that's going to be a reality for Payton Thorne this season. I'm hopeful for it because I feel like he's been equipped with all of the right tools to be able to do it. And I don't think anybody questions Payton Thorne's acumen for football. It's about whether or not when the lights come on, he's going to be able to deliver, particularly whether or not he's going to be able to do that on the road. That's going to be the telltale sign for me, whether or not Payton Thorne has taken that next step when he makes that trip to Sanford Stadium. Not saying you got to win that game, not saying you got to throw for 300, 400 yards or something crazy like that. I do need to see a better operating offense and one in which Payton Thorne looks like he is in command of what's happening at the line of scrimmage when he lines up there. The last thing I'll say about Payton Thorne before we transition over and talk about the other quarterbacks in this room, because I don't want to spend the entire show talking about Payton Thorne again, is, it's a question I asked of Mike G a couple of days ago. He was a little reluctant to give me an answer in terms of what is the leash going to look like for Payton Thorne. And this is something that we've talked about when we've done office hours. People have asked me, and I talked about this a little bit already as far as those first couple of games. For me, it's got to be Arkansas, right? Arkansas, really first half Arkansas. And you really could back that up into kind of how does he play in the Cal game? And do we take learnings from the Cal game in that first half versus New Mexico? Have we applied those learnings, and does he show a progression? Because this is what happened last year, right? You come out and it looks okay, but not great versus UMass. Looks okay, right? Nothing really bad, nothing particularly good about the UMass game, but you get out of there. Defense plays very well, puts you in some good positions, even get yourself the pick six there in that game, right? But then you go on the road to Cal, and it looks pretty bad from a pass game standpoint. Like, a lot of the pass game doesn't look good. Your run game does well. Turnovers makes it an uglier game than it needs to be. Your defense saves you in a couple of scenarios, right? They miss some field goals, right? So you get out of Cal with an ugly win, but the offense doesn't look good. Payton Thorne's not operating that offense at a high level for a variety of reasons, right? It's not just on Payton Thorne. But then you get to the Sanford game, and he looks amazing, right? For the majority, really the first half of that game, right? Though it didn't look amazing. The second half, he's in there way too long, but it's just, you get the interception off the tip pass in the end zone there versus Sanford. But like, as far as his statistics, when you look at it after the game, you're like, oh man, Payton Thorne really looked amazing. But then you go on the road again to Texas A&M, and it doesn't look good again. It looks really bad, right? And so what I want to see is, out of those first three games, Payton Thorne, because of the way he's operated the offense, not statistically, but offensive operation, having drives that end in points, hopefully in touchdowns, but end in points where you feel good enough about the operation of the offense. He doesn't need to play 3.5 quarters versus New Mexico. So this offense under Payton Thorne looks good with 2 quarters of operation by that point in the season. By game 3, we need to have seen that from him, because you had an entire years of body of work. You've had an entire offseason. Can we get to that place? If it's not by that point in time, then Arkansas has to be your line in the sand for me. If you're not coming out against Arkansas and we don't see that operation looking good because it was looking a little faulty, you had to play them longer than you wanted to, then Arkansas's got to be it. It's not working. Let's move on to somebody else and figure out, can we get this offense contributing the way that we need it to for this team to be able to do what it has to do as far as its ultimate goals for this season. That's what I want to see from Payton Thorne, and we'll see what Coach Freeze and staff have in terms of their thoughts about it. Before we get over into talking about the rest of this room, got to give you a quick word from show sponsor today, and that is Manscaped today, manscaped.com, using code RAPPORT. Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one and done deal? Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package that keeps your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. That's 20% off plus free shipping when you use code REFOR at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping with code REFOR at manscaped.com for the premium grooming experience. Trust Manscaped. We absolutely trust Manscaped here at the War Report. Been great supporters of what we've been doing here. And listen, if you are in a position where you want to be able to have the right set of tools, again, Manscaped is a place, and Coach Hugh Freeze apparently has given the right set of tools and the keys to the QB2 to one Hank Brown. If you guys didn't see on social media, or you haven't seen it in someplace on a message board or something, Hank Brown has been named as QB2 for the Auburn Tigers. This is something that we've long thought was going to be the case. But really I was pleasantly surprised at the fight that Holden Geriner had put up during the fall camp, as far as really going out there and not just laying down and saying, hey, man, I'm going to be out of here anyway. Let me just fade into the sunset. He was out there competing for the QB2 spot. But Hank Brown has been named as the quarterback 2 for Auburn going into the season. Hank Brown's a guy who I have been pretty vocal about the excitement of, and I've made it pretty clear as far as my perception. If Hank Brown gets an opportunity, he's not going to let it go. He's going to be a guy who, if he gets a chance to get out there on the field with the ones, meaning, it's not working for Payton Thorne for whatever reason, when he gets out there, I think Hank Brown's going to light it up, just because I think he's got that moxie about him. He's got a quiet confidence. I don't know. I think he and Holden both have a little bit of or are a little bit less of that command presence and the ability to rally guys that I think Walker White has in spades. Like, I think Walker White is the ultimate kind of leader, rah guy that you would want to have as your quarterback, a guy that you would want to lead the charge. I think Walker White has that in spades. I think Payton Thorne is to a lesser degree, he definitely has that, because he understands things and he's very willing to be vocal about those things. I just don't know that Payton Thorne has that get the guys together on the sideline, hey, let's get refocused kind of thing. Walker White, to me, seems like the motivational guy that gets people together and says, hey, let's go do this, let's blah, 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 this and this and that. He seems like that kind of guy. I don't know. I haven't seen that from Hank Brown. Haven't seen that from Holden Geriner. They seem more like the lead by example, quiet, go out there, handle business types, which is good. I just don't know that ultimately that's going to win quarterback competitions. We talked about this with the quarterback competition that happened between TJ Finley and Robbie Ashford. TJ was just more of the vocal, hey, he showed a command presence and therefore coaches trusted him. Payton Thorne shows more of a command presence, therefore coaches trust him. I'm not sure if Hank Brown, Holden Geriner have that in their bag that they can go to, or if they have to be given the keys before they decide that they're going to captain it the way that it needs to happen. But I do firmly believe that the play on the field for one Hank Brown is going to be a thing where if you let him get out there and you let him throw the pigskin around, he's going to show why he was a guy who deserves a scholarship at a P4 program. I think he's got the tools to be able to do that sort of thing. I think Holden Geriner has the toolkit as well, right? That's not me saying anything negative about Holden Geriner. I just think that Hank Brown has a little bit more of the moxie, a little bit more of the swagger. I think Holden Geriner has all of the arm talent, but he has looked a little shaky in the few appearances that he's gotten on the field. And the one time that I've seen Hank Brown in live action versus another P5 opponent, albeit, I get it, very limited versus backups, blah, blah. He looked good. You can say whatever else you want to. He looked good in that opportunity. I've seen Holden Geriner versus backups not look good. I've seen Hank Brown look good versus backups, right? And just the way that he operated the offense, the placement of the passes that he was throwing out there, the decisions that he made to get through his progressions quickly and decide, okay, hey, I'm just going to get to the check down. Really, he makes decisive passes. Now, is it always good? No, right? Like there's some things, again, had the opportunity to sit down with Chris Todd, and we looked at some of the stuff from 8A, and we saw some things where it's like, hey, that's not really the right decision in that scenario. You probably want to work this concept a little bit more than this one based upon, and you guys will get an opportunity to see that stuff. But I do like what Hank Brown brings to this team as far as a backup quarterback is concerned. I actually like what Holden Geriner brings to this team as well. I just fully think that from what I've seen, Hank Brown is a guy He's a guy, right? And so I think he'll if he gets his opportunities, he's going to go out there and he's going to make it work for him. I'm looking forward to seeing in that first game versus Alabama A&M him getting an opportunity to have, a full quarter's worth of work, right? Like get Payton Thorne out of there at halftime because you've put up, I don't know, 28 should be enough, right? Depending on how much the defense gives up, which, if you listen to my guy Scotty over there, if you guys haven't seen, we got a season preview situation there with Scotty talking about that A&M game, and seems to think that A&M offense may pull out all the stops to try to go out there. So if you've limited them to 10 points and you put up 4 touchdowns, and you got like a 2-touchdown lead, hey man, I think that might be enough to, maybe, unless they come out, maybe one drive in the third quarter to establish, hey, we're going to go out here, put up some more points, and then you get a good stop and you're out of there. Defense does its job. The offense should put up enough. Anyway, my point is the majority of the third quarter should be QB2 time, and then the 3 and the 4 should split time in the second and then that fourth quarter, right? Get a couple of drives in the fourth quarter for QB3, a drive or two in the fourth quarter for QB4, those being Holden Geriner and Walker White. And you walk out of there with a victory where you've put up, 50 plus points, right? Like that, what is what an ideal scenario should look like game one, as far as the distribution of the quarterback reps out there, and give all of them the opportunity to run the totality of the offense, not just turn around and hand the ball off. That's one thing that Coach Hugh Freeze says that he regrets from some of the opportunities that he did get for Holden to be in the game last year, is that once he got past Robbie in the rotation and Holden got in there, he didn't let him throw the ball. Right. So give him some opportunities to just run the offense. We're not trying to run the score up. We're trying to get our guys reps. Right. So hopefully that will be something that we see this year. Just continue to run the offense, continue to do all the things, not necessarily, put it in harm's way, but give everybody an opportunity to run the full offense so they get the reps that you'll need later on. But Hank Brown is going to be the guy at QB2. Looking forward to seeing what he provides for Auburn in that spot. Also, Coach Hugh Freeze had some good things to say about both Holden Geriner and Walker White. But again, I want to plug one more time. Coming up soon, we've got the QB film breakdown from Chris Todd with myself, talking about that quarterback position. So you guys be on the lookout for that. But that's it, man. I'm about to get out of here. Once again, the morning drop is brought to you by the folks over at Rogue Shop. Make sure you hit them up, rogueshop.com. Use code FREEZE4 for 15% off at America's #1 online dispensary, whether it's sleep, stress, pain, anxiety relief. The Rogue Shop's got something there for you. Before you get out of here, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell somebody else about it by sharing the content with them. We'll be back at you guys with more great Auburn content later. But until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.